Welcome and thank you for joining us today. On behalf of the Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, we're pleased to present the ePLATE to Web Dealer training. This session will guide you through the steps of processing a transaction from assigning the plates in ePLATE to submitting the transaction in Web Dealer. So let's begin by taking a look at what we will be covering. First, we will do an overview of what the transaction process looks like from start to finish. Then walk through that process live in ePLATE and in webDEALER. Now, let's talk about the ePLATE to webDEALER overview. Step 1. If you receive a vehicle, you must submit a vehicle transfer notification. This could be for a trade-in from a customer, or if you purchase the vehicle from a customer, an auction, or another dealer. Step 2. The customer purchases a vehicle from you. Step 3. You assign the appropriate metal plates in ePLATE to that vehicle so the customer can drive off your lot. Step 4. Submit the transaction in webDEALER. Remember, you have 30 days from the date of sale to complete this, or 45 days if it's seller financed. Final step. The county will review and approve the transaction and provide the registration sticker. And that's the full process from ePLATE to webDEALER. So let's go through all of that live, starting with ePLATE. All right, let's go ahead and jump into ePLATE. First thing, log into webDEALER with your regular eTag/webDEALER login. Once you're in, click on the second icon that says ePLATE. Now, if you've used eTag before, you'll notice ePLATE looks really familiar. So you have a few tabs on the top, with plates being the one you will use most often. Then we have an activity box that summarizes and tracks your plate assignments. Another thing we want to highlight is that once you are logged in, you can toggle between the different applications without having to sign in every time. To do this, on the top right drop down here, you would just select the application you want to access. We are going to stay in ePLATE so we can get started with a sale. When a customer purchases a vehicle, we need to assign plates so that the customer can drive off the lot. Let's now start the plate assignment process. The very first step is to set your location. Watch what I do here. I'm selecting the right location from the drop-down, then clicking Set Location. This step is key because plate assignments are tied to the inventory at that specific location. Before we move forward, let's pause for just a moment to talk about Vehicle Transfer Notifications, or VTNs. Starting July 1st, 2025, anytime a vehicle with a Texas record enters your inventory, you'll need to submit a VTN. That could be from a trade-in, a purchase from a customer, another dealer, or even at auction. And here's the main takeaway. If you're the dealer receiving the vehicle, you're responsible for submitting that VTN, and this includes off-highway vehicles and trailers. Now, if you need a full VTN walkthrough, be sure to check out our other ePLATE trainings on our website or YouTube channel. All right, with that in mind, let's get back into the plate assignment process. From the plate drop-down, I'm going to click License Plate Assignment. Now watch here as I type in the VIN for the vehicle I'm selling and hit search. Here we land on the Confirm Vehicle screen. Notice how it displays the VIN, the make, model, year, and a few other details. Take a second here every time to double check this information. If something doesn't look right, it's much easier to catch it now than to fix it later. Always choose the correct vehicle class. If this isn't correct, and you submit it to the county in webDEALER, they will reject it, and the webDEALER transaction will need to be voided, and the plate assignment will need to be voided to correct it. I do need to add a major color, so I am going to go with black. Then the last thing that needs to be filled out is if this is a leased vehicle, For our example, we are not going with a leased vehicle. Let's continue on. Next up, we move to the owner information page. Here's where I'll enter the buyer's details, full name and address. And just a quick reminder, accurate owner info is critical for registration, so make sure everything is correct before you continue. So let me quickly add my customer's full name in the name one line. If this vehicle was going to have two owners, that is when you would use the name to line. Then you would enter the customer's address, city, state, zip code, and county. County dropdown will show up after you enter the zip code. Once everything is filled out, let's move on by clicking Next. All right, now let's move on to lien holder information. If the vehicle has a lien, you'll add that here. In my example today, I'm entering a certified lien holder and saving it to the transaction. Certified lien holders will provide you with their number, but if it's a smaller bank or seller financed with no certified number, you would manually enter the information on the local lien holder tab. So as previously mentioned, I'm going to enter in the lien holder's certified number and add the date. From there, you will hit search to locate the lien holder. After confirming that this is correct, you would just hit save to add that to the assignment. What you can also do before continuing is you can edit or add a different lien holder if needed, but I'm going to keep this lien holder and move on. Next, we're on the sales information screen. Here I'll enter the date of sale and answer the export question. Now let's walk through the choices you'll see. If I select yes for export, the system stops here, no plate is assigned, and a receipt is generated. If I select no, then I'll see three options. 1. Title and registration out of Texas. This is for buyers who aren't Texas residents. The vehicle will be titled and registered in their home state, and you would assign the next available out-of-state buyer plate from your inventory. 2. Title only in Texas. This means the vehicle won't be registered in Texas. No plate gets assigned and a receipt is generated. 3. Title and registration in Texas. This is the one you'll probably use most often. When I select this, ePLATE asks if I'm issuing a general issue plate or if the buyer already has their own plate. And this could be a specialty plate, a military plate, a disabled veteran plate, or a disabled plate, for example. So if customer supplied was chosen, you would enter the customer's plate and choose the registration class. The class will depend on the vehicle being purchased and what it's going to be used for. So this will look different depending on your transaction. Given the weight of this vehicle and it being used as a passenger vehicle, I am going to choose 25 as the registration class. So again, ensure that the plate number you enter is correct. When hitting Validate, this will locate that plate's record. Here you will verify that this information is your customer's information. To save that plate to this new vehicle, you would continue by selecting Next. Because our example today is assigning a new general issue plate, let's switch this back to general issue plate. Here you would again choose the class, but since I already have that set to 25, I am going to keep that and select Retrieve Inventory. Once that is done, another drop-down will appear to choose the plate type. This again will depend on the transaction and what you have in stock. I am selecting PSP, which stands for Passenger Truck Plate. Then we can open up the plate number dropdown. Quick tip here. Plates added to your inventory through the VTN process always show up at the bottom of the list. If you don't want to scroll, you can just type the plate number in the search bar and it'll come right up. All right, so now I want to go ahead and pick the plate I'm assigning. In this case, I'm going to select the next plate in sequential order. And here's the important part. Make sure the plate you pick in the system is the same plate you're physically putting on the vehicle. Once that's done, I'll go ahead and click Next. Now we're on the Confirm Information screen. This page shows everything we've entered so far. Take a moment. Here to review carefully, this is your chance to catch and correct any mistakes before you save. If you notice something that needs updating, just click the Edit button on the right, make the correction, and then continue with the plate assignment. Once everything looks correct, scroll all the way down and click Save. After saving, you'll see the success screen. From here, you'll be able to print the receipt. Make sure you do this. This is the document you'll hand to the customer. They'll keep it on hand until they receive their official registration sticker. At this point, the customer can leave your lot with the metal plates already affixed to the vehicle and drive legally. Now, as a dealer, remember you have 30 days to submit this transaction to the county using webDEALER, or 45 days if the vehicle is seller financed. So, again, always print the receipt and give the customer their copy. All right, now that the plate assignment is complete, let's switch over to webDEALER so we can submit the title application for this vehicle. On the top right of your screen, I'm going to toggle over to webDEALER. Let's fast forward to when the application is submitted. Just like before, make sure you're working under the correct location. Once you've verified that, go ahead and set the location. But before we continue with the webDEALER side of this sale, let's quickly go over the webDEALER homepage. On the top, we have quick tabs with the titles, one being the most important. On the left side, we have a title activity box that serves as quick links to specific titles based on their status. The return titles are ones that you want to check regularly as they get added if a county returns a title to you. Now, from the titles drop-down, I'll select New Title Application. The first step is to enter the VIN of the vehicle you sold. So let's type that in, hit search, and now the system pulls up the vehicle information. From here, we're on the seller's disclosure page. Anything marked with a red asterisk needs to be filled in. Let's go through it. First, we need to enter the ID type. So like any information we enter, we need to make sure that everything we enter is accurate. If it was a business purchasing a vehicle, we could also enter their FEIN or EIN number. My customer is providing me with a Texas ID, so I'll enter the ID number and Texas as the state. Next, we are going to choose the processing county. This can be either your county, the customer's county, or the lien holder's county. If you don't see the processing county that you are going to use, you would need to contact that county with your dealership's information so that they can set you up. Now, another option you may have is this FSD option. This stands for Full Service Deputy. If you have a FSD that you are set up within your county, then you could choose them as the processing entity. Let's now enter the sales price, enter the odometer, reading, and brand. At the bottom, you'll see two options for the form 130U. You can upload it or you can complete it electronically. To submit it electronically, your customer will need a valid Texas ID, email, and know the last four digits of their social security number. What happens is the buyer would receive an email that contains a hyperlink to the webDEALER buyer acknowledgement login webpage. They would sign in with the required information and certify the sales price and odometer reading. Now, if your buyer doesn't have all of the requirements, then you would fill out and upload a 130U form like normal. For this demo, I'm going to upload the 130U like we've traditionally done so you can see what that looks like. Now let's move to the vehicle information page. You'll notice most of this carried over from the plate assignment. Here we are just going to confirm all of the information. One thing that I would like to highlight before moving on is this diesel box. If you need to include the 1% emissions fee, this is where you would mark it so that it gets included in the computed fees. Everything else looks good, so I'll go ahead and hit next. Next is lien holder information. Since I already added the lien holder during plate assignment, that carried over here. I'll just confirm it's correct and move forward. Quick tip, if the lien holder information wasn't correct or has changed since the plate assignment, you can delete the lien holder and enter a new lien holder if necessary. Now we're on the owner information page. Here, enter all of the buyer's details. Again, anything with a red asterisk is required. So first, let's choose the owner type. This will depend on who you are selling the vehicle to. We are going to choose individual and, like before, verify the information that got carried over from the plate assignment. Then, choose the resident county. Your customer will also have the option to opt in to email reminders about their registration here. You also have options to add a renewal recipient, someone other than the owner, enter a vehicle physical location, needed if the buyer has a P.O. box, or add survivorship rights or beneficiary information. If none of those apply, just keep moving forward. Next up is plate and sticker information. This will automatically carry over from the plate assignment, so you should see the plate you assigned earlier already filled in here. Since this is a passenger vehicle, the sticker type defaults to windshield, which is correct. If this were a motorcycle or trailer, you'd switch that option to plates instead. Everything looks good, so I'll click Next. We are getting closer to finishing this title application. One of the final steps is filling out the sales tax information. Choosing the sales tax category will depend on the sale. In the sales tax drop-down, the two most used will be sales tax and exempt. Before we add the sales tax, I do want to show you what exempt looks like before we move on. So as far as exempt reasons, some common examples of when you would choose this is dealer resales, interstate motor carrier, and seller financed. As mentioned, I'm going to switch this back to sales tax. Now, if you had a trade-in, you would enter that information here. As soon as you add a price, additional fields will pop up. This is where you would enter the VIN, year, and vehicle make. We didn't take in a trade-in, so let's keep pushing on through. So let's remove the trade-in amount and hit Next. Now we need to upload the documents for this transaction. If you select the red box here, this will let you know at the very minimum of what needs to be uploaded. However, this doesn't include any supporting documents that you might need for this transaction. First step is to choose the ownership document type. This could include a Texas title, CCO, out-of-state title, or even an MCO. We have a Texas title, so that's what we are choosing and hitting save. This will now prompt us to upload our documents. These need to be uploaded so that they are legible and in the correct order. First should be the 30U, then the evidence of ownership, and then any supporting documents. When it comes to uploading, you can upload each document individually. However, we recommend using the complete transaction option. This will give you control of the order and ensure that they are getting submitted correctly. So let's see what that looks like. First, I'm going to select my file for this transaction that has all of the documents needed. Then I will hit Add to save it to the submission. Now that we have the file included, I do want to emphasize how important it is To view that document for accuracy and order, under Actions, hit View to open your document. Now that we have it open, I see that my 130U is first, then I have my evidence of ownership, which would have been a Texas title, and then any supporting documents for this transaction. Now that we've taken a look and we are good with everything, let's go ahead and scroll to the top and close this out. Let's begin to wrap things up with now opening the title preview page. Now we're on the title preview page. This is where you, as the dealer, get to do one last full review of everything that's been entered. Something I really want to point out. Look over on the right-hand side. You'll see edit icons next to each section. That's important because only dealers have access to edit this information at this stage. We sometimes get questions during our webinars like, why can't the county just fix an error instead of sending it back? Well, this is why. The county doesn't have those edit options. They can't change your data, so if something's wrong, they have to return it to you, which delays processing. So the key takeaway here, this is your chance to make sure everything is correct before submission. Now, before we submit, notice something. The submit button is grayed out. That's because we have not computed the fees yet. Down at the bottom of this page, notice there is an incomplete data message in the computed fees. So here's what you'll want to do. First, verify the computed fees are correct by hitting that edit button. This will then show all the computed fees. Spend some time to go over everything to make sure it's correct. One thing that I would like to point out is the dealer issued buyer plate fee, which is $10 and is what is replacing the buyer's tag fee. Now there's also going to be an option for your customer to opt in to donations. So if a customer wanted to add $10 to the Veterans Fund, they can do so. Let's finish up with the fees and select Save. Let's scroll back to the bottom. As you can see, the Submit button is now available. Before we submit, I want to talk about the Void button. This will be to delete this transaction completely in webDEALER. This is extremely important because in webDEALER, you can't change the registration class or the sales price. If that was incorrect in webDEALER, you must void the application here first and then in ePLATE. You would then resubmit the plate assignment with the correct information. That being said, let's now submit this transaction so that the county can review it for accuracy. They will either approve and request payment, or if anything is missing, it will be returned back to you. Let's go into our title search to pull up that transaction. In the filters, I am going to change the status to submit, hit search, and pull up the latest transaction on the submitted on filter. This will pull up that transaction I just submitted that is in the submitted status, meaning it has not been reviewed by the county yet. This will also be where you can locate who the transaction was submitted by and when it was submitted. On the bottom of the page, this is where you could submit a retraction. You can request this only when the transaction is submitted and in the submitted status. So if you had a sale unwind and you need to void the transaction, but you already submitted it, you would request that retraction so that the county can return it back to you and you void it. Back to the home page, the last thing I want to reiterate is that in the titles activity box, if anything gets returned to you from the county, it will appear in the first line. You want to check this regularly so that you stay up to date with transaction and staying in that 30 or 45 day window. With that, you've completed submitting a transaction from start to finish. This concludes our training, so on behalf of the TxDMV, we would like to thank you for watching. Be sure to check out our other training videos on our YouTube page and on our website.